Welcome back, Focus Learners, to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really profound tension that sits right at the core of literally everything we do. Whether you're making art, scaling a business, or even raising a family, it's this constant push and pull between forcing a specific outcome and simply creating the environment for something to naturally emerge. Okay, let's dive into this. So, look at this quote. Chip Conley isn't just offering us a nice inspirational thought for the day here. He's actually laying out the overarching thesis for our entire analysis. We're asking one fundamental question today. Is a life, a business, a piece of art, or even a child being forced into a rigid shape from the outside? Or are they being allowed to become what they actually are? Conley reminds us that when we try to squeeze what's important into a pre-existing box of obligations, we're trying to force a shape. And honestly, that rarely works out well. And that brings us to the core dichotomy. On one hand, we have forcing a shape. This is all about the illusion of control. On the other hand, we have allowing to become, which is entirely about creating the right conditions. Throughout this explainer, we're going to trace this exact battle across some wildly different domains. We're pulling insights from 19th century literature, jumping into modern chocolate manufacturing, and even looking at a 7-year-old Bruce Springsteen just to see how this dynamic plays out in the real world. All right, Section 1. What Real Art Resists, the Philosophy of Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy noticed that we heavily misuse art criticism, especially when we're dealing with what he called false art. So, to figure out what real art actually is, he created this diagnostic tool by looking at what real art actively resists. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that he isn't describing raw talent. Notice the specific criteria here. It's driven by sacrifice and calling rather than just profit. And it's actually understandable to everyday people rather than being locked away in hyper-specialization. He's pointing to a profound shift in motive. It's all about why the creator is making the thing in the first place. You literally can't command or force this kind of authenticity. It has to stem from a genuine calling. Building on that whole philosophy, we get this incredible thought from Henry Frederick Amiel. Thinkers like him, along with Schopenhauer and Ruskin, firmly believed that great art thrives on calling, not on competition or ego. Schopenhauer actually argued that great art makes its absolute deepest impression exactly where our intellect can't fully explain it. Basically, if a work can be completely explained away by logic, it wasn't really doing much work to begin with. Real art, just like Amiel says here, totally resists intellectual control. It simplifies and clarifies through its own natural conditions. Now, let's see how this same idea holds up in a completely different arena. Section 2, the chocolate industry test, applying Tolstoy to commerce. But this isn't just about 19th century literature. It's also about chocolate. Seriously, let's look at strategy expert Seth Godin's take on the chocolate industry. Godin doesn't actually mention Tolstoy, but walk with me through this comparison. Think of commodity chocolate as Tolstoy's false art running at an industrial scale. The entire goal is forced market share and profitability, right? The system rewards position and pride. But then look at ethical chocolate. The goal flips to flavor, innovation, and the actual dignity of the farmers. The system relies on horizontal ecosystem change. And the result? A true calling. The industrial commodity side is totally optimized for scale and forced production. It's completely indifferent to the actual flavor or the humans involved in making it. It's the ultimate example of forcing a shape. Pushing back against that commodity system, Godin points out 3 amazing counterexamples. Take Tony's Chocolonely. The founder didn't even set out to build a huge company. He was just frustrated by slave labor, and it became a calling. And it turns out treating people like human beings is a pretty solid business model. They now hold nearly a fifth of the Dutch market. Then you have Sean Askinosie, who radically raised wages and literally opened his company's financial books to the farmers. And Original Beans, a company using its profits to actively regenerate the landscape. Notice the pattern? None of these founders optimized for scale first. They proved for sure that you cannot command your way into a better system. You can't dictate that kind of change from the top down. You can only create the honest conditions, let the idea spread horizontally, and let the ecosystem take it from there. Section 3. Letting children truly become, from market share to the living room. So author Ryan Holiday takes this exact same logic, conditions over control, and applies it directly to parenting. He brings up this really striking line from Banksy. Parents who will do anything for their kids except let them be themselves. It just perfectly captures the ultimate parental failure. Just like Godin diagnoses systemic failure in the chocolate supply chain, Banksy is diagnosing it right in our living rooms. It's what happens when we mistake control for cultivation. Our job isn't to mold our kids into little successors by forcing them into a predetermined shape, right? It's to help them become who they are actually meant to be.
And this brilliantly illustrates an alternative to all that molding. Holiday offers a four-step framework: expose, support, believe, and catch. This is that horizontal conditions, not command model applied directly to raising a child. To back this up, Holiday shares this awesome story about a 7-year-old Bruce Springsteen. Little Bruce was watching Elvis on The Ed Sullivan Show and was just absolutely captivated. He didn't have a dime to his name, but he managed to talk his mom into renting him a guitar. Now, nobody engineered that moment. His mom didn't force him to be a musician. She simply created a condition. She said yes to the rental, and she let his identity find its own shape from there. She exposed, supported, believed, and was ready to catch him if he fell.
Which brings us to Section 4, the discipline of becoming. The hardest work is restraint. We've reached the climax of our explainer here, and it is absolutely crucial to understand something. Refusing to force an outcome. It is not a passive treat. It demands active, rigorous discipline. This iconic philosophy from Bruce Lee, have no way as way, no limitation as limitation. It acts as a compression of everything we've talked about today. Real art, real enterprise, and real parenting all converge right here on this shared refusal of a fixed imposed form. They all refuse to force an outcome, choosing instead to let the authentic shape emerge from within. So I kind of want to break the fourth wall for a second and challenge you directly. Are you inventing things to do just to avoid the important work? Are you substituting busyness for true becoming? You know, the ancient poet Hesiod actually praised the wise old owl who saw more and heard more, simply because he spoke less. Hesiod viewed silence and restraint as a tough, active discipline. Actually becoming what you are requires enough silence to hear what's true. And frankly, that is a way harder practice than just loudly performing what you'd like the world to see you as. Let's just name the actual dramatic stakes of this philosophy. Don't be afraid of death, be afraid of an unlived life. The author Minna Antrim once pointed out that the drama of life runs incredibly quickly, from a wail to a sigh. The whole arc is short, and a lot of what fills it is just noise. The true risk was never our finitude. The real danger is spending our limited time on Earth just performing a life, instead of genuinely living the whole shebang. So the crucial point is this: 3 domains, 1 shared refusal. Whether we are talking about Leo Tolstoy defining real art, Seth Godin analyzing chocolate makers, or a mom raising a young Bruce Springsteen, authentic becoming happens through conditions, not control. You cannot manufacture the real thing by force, or competition, or command. Now, sure, even individual becoming needs a supportive structure, like the ecosystem of ethical chocolate or a loving household. But within that structure, you have to protect the silence so you can notice what's true, and let the authentic take its very own shape. We started off today with Chip Conley, reminding us to bend our obligations around what matters rather than the other way around. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Take a close look at your own work, your relationships, your big goals. Are you forcing your life into a predetermined shape, or are you actively creating the honest conditions to let it become what it truly is? Think about it. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.